Have you ever had a neighbor who thought your property was theirs to use, ignored every no you said, brought strangers into your backyard without permission, and then screamed bloody murder when they discovered the harmless purple dye you added to your hot tub had turned them into walking grape popsicles for the whole neighborhood to see? If you love interesting stories like this that expose the truth, please give this video a thumbs up and tell us in the comments section where in the world you are watching this video, and also do well to smash that subscribe button. Booker Evans never imagined he'd own a hot tub. After 20 years of grinding double shifts at the steel mill in Birmingham, Alabama, saving every overtime dollar and bonus check, the idea of relaxing in his own bubbling paradise seemed like pure fantasy. But dreams have a way of becoming reality when you work hard enough. Booker found the perfect home in a quiet neighborhood in Nashville, Tennessee. A modest brick house with a peaceful backyard and no nosy homeowners association. The best part? Space for his dream. A custom cedar hot tub right off his back deck. It wasn't flashy. Booker wasn't that type of man. But it was his. At first, life was perfect. The street was calm, filled with retirees and young families who minded their own business. Booker loved that friendly waves but no drama. Then Margaret Whitmore moved in next door. Margaret was in her early 60s, a retired insurance agent from Memphis. Platinum blonde hair, oversized sunglasses, and a voice that could cut through steel. Her house shared the same layout as Booker's, separated only by a wooden fence. "Hi there," she called out one Saturday morning, waving a coffee mug that read "World's Best Agent." Booker waved back politely. "Just so you know," she continued with a bright smile, "I'm a sharer. Don't believe in all these fences. They divide people. We're neighbors. We should be family." Booker gave a tight smile and nodded. Something about her tone made his stomach twist. At first, Margaret kept her distance. Just small talk by the mailboxes, or when she walked her tiny dog, Princess. But then strange things started happening. Footprints appeared on the side of Booker's deck. A wine cork floated in his hot tub. He told himself he was imagining things. Maybe it was the wind. Maybe raccoons. But deep down, he knew better. Then came the Thursday that changed everything. Booker arrived home late from work. As he parked, he heard laughter. Loud, carefree laughter mixed with the unmistakable sound of his hot tub jets running. His backyard lights were on. There they were, Margaret and two of her friends, sitting comfortably in his hot tub, towels draped across his chairs, his outdoor speaker playing soft rock from the 80s. Booker didn't explode. He walked calmly around to the side gate, unlocked it, and stood on his deck. Margaret looked up, raised her wine glass and smiled. "Hope you don't mind. We were just enjoying this beautiful evening. You have the best setup." "I didn't invite anybody," Booker said evenly. One of the other women chuckled. "Oh, we know." Margaret said it was fine. "I paid for this tub." Booker's voice stayed calm but firm. "This is my backyard. You're not supposed to be here." Margaret let out a soft laugh. "Booker, relax. We're neighbors. Besides, you're hardly ever home during the day. It's just a hot tub. It's not like we're using your toothbrush." Booker's jaw clenched. "Get out." That was the first time he said it directly. Margaret didn't apologize. She rolled her eyes, took one last sip of wine, and stepped out like she was doing him a favor. That night, Booker drained the water and scrubbed every surface. But he knew this wasn't over. Some people don't hear the first no. That's when problems really begin. After that confrontation, Booker thought the message was clear. No more borrowing his hot tub. No more treating his backyard like a public spa. But Margaret wasn't that type of person. Within a week, it started again. More subtle this time, but definitely happening. Damp towels left on his fence. Wet footprints on his steps. Empty beer cans by the filter. Booker installed cameras and reinforced his fence. He added a lock to the gate and moved his patio furniture into the garage. Margaret found a way anyway. One Saturday afternoon, Booker came home early to find Margaret standing in his hot tub. Alone this time, swirling her fingers in the water. "You're back early," she said with fake surprise. "I was just making sure the jets weren't clogged. They looked a little slow the other day." Booker didn't respond. He walked over and powered down the entire system. "You need to stop," he said firmly. "This isn't yours. You're not invited. Don't come in here again." Margaret blinked like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Well, I never expected this kind of tone. I've lived in better neighborhoods with better manners. I was trying to help. That filter needed cleaning. Out." Booker pointed to the gate. She left without apologizing, wrapped in his towel, which he dumped in a wet heap on his chair. That evening, Booker filed a police report. The deputy barely looked up from his tablet. "No forced entry, no physical damage, no threats," the officer said. "Sounds like a neighborly misunderstanding. Get a no trespassing sign. Post it clearly. Then we can do more next time." So Booker did exactly that. He ordered the biggest, boldest metal sign he could find and screwed it directly into his fence facing Margaret's yard. Black letters, all caps, with legal codes at the bottom. It didn't stop her. Margaret got petty. She mowed her lawn while blasting talk radio. She started accidentally, tossing tennis balls into Booker's yard. She left passive-aggressive notes on his mailbox about excess chlorine drifting over the fence. And she kept making snide comments whenever they crossed paths. "You should really clean those leaves off your deck. I heard the pump making weird noises yesterday. Hope it's not broken. I could have sworn I saw your cousin soaking in it the other day. Wasn't sure if that was okay." Booker kept his cool. He documented everything with dates and times. But what really pushed him over the edge came on a Tuesday morning. He was heading to work, coffee in hand, when he spotted a stranger walking down the side of his house. Shirtless, towel around his waist. Some 20-something guy with wet hair and a smug expression. "Hey!" Booker called out. "You lost?" "Nah," the guy said casually. "Margaret told me I could use the tub. Said you were cool with it, as long as I didn't make a mess." Booker stared at him in disbelief. "She said you work nights, that you wouldn't even know," the guy continued, then strolled away, towel still dripping. Booker walked inside and sat at his kitchen table. His hands were shaking, not with fear, but with pure rage. This wasn't about water anymore. This was about respect. That week, Booker's sleep suffered. Every night around 11, his phone would buzz with motion alerts. There was Margaret, creeping into his yard like she owned the place, bringing friends, turning on his hot tub like it was some vacation rental. Booker took screenshots and sent them to his cousin Darnell with no explanation. Darnell responded immediately. "Yo, you trying to prank this lady? Either way, I'm in." The next morning, Booker printed the photos and taped them inside his garage. A reminder that this was no longer a misunderstanding. This was theft. That weekend, Booker confronted Margaret at the mailbox. "Let me ask you something," he said calmly. "Why do you keep telling people they can use my hot tub?" Margaret sighed like she'd been preparing for this conversation. "Booker, it's not that serious. We're neighbors. There's a level of understanding in communities like this. You weren't using it. You work all the time. I thought I'd help keep it from getting stagnant." "Helping is asking," Booker replied. "This isn't yours. You don't pay for the chemicals. You don't clean it. You don't fix it when it breaks." "Well, if you're going to be territorial about it," Margaret snapped, "maybe you shouldn't have put it right where everyone can see it. You ever think about that?" Booker raised his eyebrows. "So I'm asking for it?" "I'm just saying," she brushed past him. You can't expect to show off something like that and not share. That night, Booker opened his laptop and started searching, not for lawyers or better fences, but for something that could send a message without landing him in court. That's when he found it. A Reddit thread about a pool owner dealing with neighborhood kids sneaking in at night. The solution? Color-changing dye. Non-toxic, invisible in cool water, but once it touches heat, especially from skin, it turns bright electric purple. Temporary, safe, but not washable for hours. A mark they couldn't ignore. Booker read every comment, saved the product page, and clicked Order 2 bottles, express shipping. 3 days later, the dye arrived. 2 clear containers with thick liquid and simple instructions. Mix into warm water. Wait 12 hours for full activation. That night, Booker drained his hot tub, refilled it, poured both bottles in, and stirred with a long-handled tool. The water looked completely normal. No smell, no color, just water. He waited. 2 days passed. Nothing happened. Booker began wondering if Margaret had finally backed off. But on Sunday afternoon around 3 p.m., his phone buzzed. Motion detected. He opened the app. There they were, Margaret and 2 friends, towels in hand, drinks already flowing. They slid into the tub with big smiles. The jets kicked on. Then it started. One woman let out a squeal. "What the hell?" The other gasped. "Oh my God, what is this? My skin! It's turning purple!" Margaret scrambled to her feet, looking down at her arms, thighs, and chest. Bright violet patches bloomed everywhere like some alien infection. They panicked, slipping and swearing, knocking over chairs. Margaret shrieked something about a chemical reaction and ran toward the gate. Booker didn't laugh. He just stood behind his kitchen window, arms crossed, sipping cold ginger ale. He'd never felt so calm. The purple had shown up. Now it was time for everyone else to see what had really been happening. By Monday morning, Margaret's meltdown had spread through the entire block. Booker didn't say a word. He didn't have to. Mrs. Rodriguez across the street had caught part of the scene from her sunroom and told her sister, who told the woman next door. By lunchtime, someone had posted in the local Facebook group, "Does anyone know why there were purple women running down Oak Street yesterday?" The comments exploded. "Wait, what happened? I saw them too. They looked like they fell in paint. Wasn't that Margaret from the corner house?" Booker stayed silent. He figured silence had more power than any explanation he could give. That night, Margaret marched to his front door with red cheeks and a folder tucked under her arm. She rang the bell like she was trying to wake the dead. Booker opened the door halfway. "You tried to poison me," she snapped. "The dye is non-toxic," Booker replied flatly. "Approved for pools. You can Google it. I don't care what the label says. My skin looked like I rolled in grape juice. I had to scrub with baking soda for 2 hours. You weren't supposed to be in there," Booker said. "I was just trying to. You've been warned repeatedly." He cut her off. "This was the cleanest way I could get the point across without calling a lawyer." "Well, maybe you should have done that instead of humiliating me." Booker stepped onto his porch. "You humiliated yourself. You don't belong in my yard, in my tub, or on my property. I put up signs. I installed locks. You ignored all of that." Margaret opened her folder and held up a printed page. "This is a complaint I'm filing with the city. Unsafe chemicals and public endangerment." Booker looked at it, then back at her. "But I have video." She blinked. "Excuse me?" "Security footage. All of it. Time-stamped with audio. You're in every frame." Margaret took half a step back. "You're recording me? In my yard?" "Absolutely." She didn't say another word, just turned and walked away, folder in hand. 2 weeks later, Booker received a certified letter. Margaret was threatening to sue for intentional public humiliation and emotional distress. Booker contacted a lawyer named Sarah Mitchell, a straight shooter who worked out of Nashville. She reviewed all the footage, the dye documentation, the signs, the locks, everything. "You're fine," she told Booker across her desk. "She's trying to intimidate you. If this goes to court, which I doubt, I'd be happy to represent you." Sarah drafted a response letter that made Booker smile. It laid out all the facts: repeated trespassing, ignored warnings, legal documentation of ownership. Then she ended with a sentence that sealed the deal. "If your client wishes to discuss a countersuit for ongoing harassment and misuse of private property, Mr. Evans is prepared to do so." Margaret's lawyer never replied. Instead, the Homeowners Association president, Robert Hayes, showed up at Booker's door with a clipboard and a strange expression. "There was a meeting," Robert said. "Margaret filed a grievance. She's accusing you of disrupting neighborhood unity." Booker raised an eyebrow. "Is that even a real thing?" Robert chuckled. "It is when someone won't accept they lost." After reviewing all the evidence, the footage, the letters, Margaret's social media posts, the lawyer's response, the board voted to dismiss the grievance entirely. "Just so you know," Robert added, "word is she's putting her house on the market. Says the area's become hostile to women." Booker didn't smile, not right away. He just took a sip of his iced tea and looked out at his backyard. The real victory wasn't making her move. It was standing his ground without ever lowering himself to her level. By September, the neighborhood had finally relaxed. Margaret's windows stayed shut. Her porch light burned out and never got replaced. The woman who once paced the sidewalk every morning with her tiny dog had vanished. A young couple came to tour Margaret's house, early 30s with a baby and hopeful expressions. They walked over while Booker was trimming hedges. "Hey," the woman said, "we're thinking about putting in an offer. You live next door?" "Yeah, for years now," Booker replied. "Nice area?" the man asked. "Quiet neighbors?" Booker gave a half smile. "Now, yeah, real quiet." They laughed, not knowing how much weight those words carried. That evening, Darnell dropped by and threw himself into one of Booker's patio chairs. "So Queen Drama moved out yet?" Darnell asked. "Almost. For sale sign went up last week." "Damn." Darnell shook his head. "All this over a hot tub." "It was never just about the tub," Booker replied. "It was about being respected. She acted like she had some claim to it, like I was just in the way of her comfort." Darnell nodded slowly. "Some folks don't believe a boundary's real unless it's nailed into their pride." Booker chuckled. "Well, hers is purple-stained and on camera." Later that week, Mrs. Rodriguez knocked on Booker's door holding a small houseplant wrapped in brown paper. "I just wanted to say," she began, "that a lot of us saw what happened. Some of us, myself included, should have said something sooner." Booker took the plant, surprised. "You didn't owe me anything." "Maybe not, but when people see something wrong, staying quiet only protects the loudest voice. We all saw what she did, and no one stepped in. That's not how a community's supposed to work." As she walked back toward her house, she called over her shoulder, "If you ever want to come by for coffee, my door's open. And I promise not to jump in your tub." Booker laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. The new quiet wasn't just about silence. It was about recognition. Small acknowledgments. A neighbor waving without suspicion. Kids slowing their bikes to say thank you when Booker handed them a ball that rolled into his yard. Respect had been earned, not demanded. One evening, as summer faded into fall, Booker sat on his deck watching the sky change from orange to gray. The hot tub hummed softly beside him, clean, clear, and his alone. When he'd first installed it, he thought he was just buying comfort, a reward after 2 decades of hard work, something to ease his back and give him peace after long days. But it had become something else entirely, his battleground, his line in the sand. It was never about luxury. It was about ownership, not just of property, but of peace. He'd spent months trying to explain that with words, respectfully, calmly, and still he was ignored, not misunderstood. Ignored, like his no didn't carry the same weight. Like being polite made his boundaries optional. It wasn't until he took a different route, creative, deliberate, and completely within his rights, that people finally listened. A week later, he watched the moving truck back into Margaret's driveway. No goodbyes, no neighborhood wave, just boxes, tape, and silence. That night he called his mother in Atlanta. She'd heard pieces of the drama through family gossip. "You handled it better than most would have," she told him. "I kept it legal," Booker replied. "That's not what I mean. You didn't let her take your dignity with your peace. That's the difference." When the call ended, Booker walked onto his deck one last time that evening. The air had cooled, carrying hints of autumn. He leaned on the rail, watching steam lift from his hot tub. What he'd learned wasn't just about fences or cameras or clever dye. It was about standing up for your space without burning everything around you. About drawing a line without swinging fists. About picking fights only when the cause was real and letting the truth do the heavy lifting. People like Margaret will always exist. They wear different faces in different neighborhoods, but the pattern's the same. Take what's not theirs, claim what doesn't belong to them, twist reality until they feel justified. But you don't have to yell to prove them wrong. You just have to be ready with your facts, your calm, your camera if needed. Hold steady, because when truth shows up in living color, it can't be ignored. The neighborhood never forgot the man who did it without breaking a single rule. So if you ever find yourself where your voice is dismissed, your boundaries ignored, or your patience mistaken for weakness, remember Booker Evans. Sometimes the strongest message isn't shouted. It's recorded, time-stamped, and turns skin purple when people get too bold. Respect isn't given. It's earned and protected. And when your peace is tested, guard it with both hands. Never be afraid to make your point in a way they'll never forget.